people are always asking me what VSTs and what plugins I'm using to create my sound. In this week's episode, I'm going to jump into a couple of my recent projects and we'll take a look at exactly that. Take a look at my most used instrument VSTs, processing plugins, and then do stick around for the end because I'll also drop a little tip on my favorite mastering plugin as well. So here we go, I've just loaded up a new project. Here's a little sneak peek on a track that I've been working on recently. Super lush and super lovely. So let's jump straight into it with my favorite piano VSTs. There's two VSTs in particular that I use for my piano sounds. The first one, and the one I'm using a lot recently, is the Spitfire Originals Cinematic Piano. This piano is just beautiful. I open up my pattern here and we play just the piano on its own. It's just super lovely. It's got a really nice warm tone that is perfect for the dreamy lo-fi that I make. It's got a really clean interface, very similar to the Labs plugin, which is arguably the best free plugin on the market. If you have Labs, you'll recognize the interface. It's got this main knob here that you can use to tweak reverb, tightness, hammers, pedal. We've also got the equivalent knobs at the bottom here. And you'll see if I tweak this one, it also tweaks that main knob at the top there. You can also mess around with some of the settings with the close, mix, and pad settings to tweak the sound to your liking. And it's got a couple of really lovely presets. My favorite is this 50/50 preset that I'm using here. The other piano that I use a lot in my tracks is the Imagiro Piano 2. This is a really lovely piano that again just has a really nice character for lo-fi stuff. So if I replace my Originals piano with the Imagiro piano, let's see how that's sounding. So now it's a touch brighter than the Originals piano, but again, just super lovely. This is the Piano 1 from Imagiro. There is also a Piano 2 and a third instrument that you can buy, but only have the first piano. But if you turn on the dynamics and the settings, you can get really into the weeds of this plugin. This is how I have mine set up as a standard. I think messing with the tone here is how you can get a really nice warm. You can kind of make it a little bit darker and a little bit warmer. And just kind of muddles some of those higher frequencies. You can also reverse the chords with this plugin and say how long you want that to go on for. To get some really interesting dynamic sounds. Super nice. So those are my two favorite piano plugins. I think they both cost somewhere between 20 and 30 pounds, but they're both absolutely lovely and just really nice. Just give a quick shout out to Labs for the soft piano, which is a great free piano if you are after that. And then one of my favorite e-piano sounds is the Labs Super Soft Whirly DI. This just has a really nice warm e-piano sound. Great for layering into your tracks, possibly underneath that of like a normal standard piano. Speaking of Labs, when it comes to adding ambience and drones to my tracks, it's my go-to plugin. For my drones, I almost always use this sound. This is the Pedal Pads Azure Piano. It just has this really lovely warm ambient sound to it. And as with all Labs sounds, you can tweak it so you can up the dynamics. It makes it a lot more brighter, squash them completely. Simple, warm sound, You can play with the attack, the decay, all of those things. This is my favorite drone for just adding some ambience and a bit of background noise to my track. When it comes to adding guitars in the DAW rather than playing in live, I use Flex. In the Essential Guitars pack, there is this chill guitar preset that with a fair bit of processing, you can get a really lovely sound out of it. In this track, I've made sort of an ambient sound with the guitar. But you can use this as a lead guitar. I've done this in tons of my tracks. For example, in this track here, I've used exactly the same sound and made this sort of lead ARP melody. And then in the mix of this track, and if you want to learn more about how to make that sound, I've already done a video on this. Full tutorial will be up here. When it comes to recording live guitar and live bass, my go-to plugin is Guitar Rig 7. Now this is a fairly expensive plugin, but it just has some really nice out-of-the-box sounds. My go-to sound for guitar is this Clean Cave preset, and I've just tweaked that ever so slightly, so I've saved my own version of it, but this is a great out-of-the-box sound. And when it comes to bass, they also have a Clean Bass preset. I've used both of those in this track. So I recorded a live bass and it sounds like this. Just really nice and warm. And then I've got 2 guitar lines that I've recorded using the Clean Cave preset. When I'm not recording live bass, I do use Labs again for a free bass sound, which is absolutely amazing. And that is the Opia sub bass. And that is a great alternative if you don't want to record live bass or you don't know how to play bass. And that's pretty much it for instrument VSTs that I use in my tracks. Almost all of my tracks are built around piano, bass, and guitar, and then also obviously keying in some drums into the track. So I'm just going to have a look at VSTs that I use all the time for processing. The VST that I use the most in all of my tracks is EQ, as boring as that is. And there's 2 EQs at the moment that I use all the time. That is the Ozone 11 EQ, and it just has a super clean interface. You can add as many points as you want, do everything you would want to do in an EQ. You can choose the different types of points that you're adding to a sound, and you can get really granular with it. It's a really lovely EQ. The second EQ that I use is TDR Nova. This is a free plugin, and the best thing about this one is that you can add sort of thresholds and get some really nice dynamic EQ, so that when the sound goes above this point, it will start squishing that sound. So you could do something like that, and whenever this sound goes over, it will duck that frequency. And that's super great if you want to get more granular into dynamic EQing and making a sound exactly the way that you want it to sound, or ducking sounds out when other things are hitting perhaps. Another one of my favorite free plugins at the moment is called Flux Mini 2. And this is sort of like a sidechain plugin, but you can create super dynamic, weird shapes and make it as fast or as slow as you want it to, and it will kind of warp your sound to give it. So if we just do something like this and I put that on the piano, let's listen to what it does. Make it faster. And this is a super nice plugin for adding some really interesting dynamics to your sounds. You can use it on drones. I like to use it on ambiances to give a little bit of movement. You could also use it on some transition sounds or something like that. I give a little shout out to Valhalla Supermassive. That's my favorite reverb plugin. You can get some really crazy, ambient, lovely, interesting reverb sounds out of that, and it can do all kinds of stuff. Got some amazing presets out of the box. I think that's pretty much it for like my favorite plugins, things that I use all the time. And here's a little bonus one for you. On my mastering channel, I use this patcher preset called Finalizer. And it looks kind of crazy when you look at the map, but if you open up this tab, you can see what it's actually doing. And this is on all of my masters. It's essentially a free mastering channel routed through the Patcher plugin. So you get a multiband compressor, you get an EQ, you get a shaper here, which is where you can sort of tame certain frequencies. Similar thing to what I was talking about with TDR Nova. You get some saturation here, a clipper, a limiter, and then some high pass, low pass cuts and filters. You can also up the input, output, and just do essentially all of your mastering through one plugin. So yeah, those are probably my most used plugins in almost every Kyo song that you hear these days. Every video you watch me making, those plugins are most likely in use somewhere on a project. And most of them are free, if not relatively cheap. Yeah, I hope this is helpful for you guys, and if you have any questions about, if you want me to go into more detail about plugins that I use, how I use them, if you want me to do breakdowns of how I make certain sounds with my plugins, drop a comment on this video and let me know, and I will possibly do that. I think that's all for this one. Hope you found this helpful. Peace out.